The quantum arrays at the Helios Deep Space Observatory weren't supposed to detect anything interesting that night. Dr. Sarah Chen had settled into her usual routine, coffee growing cold beside her terminal, holographic displays casting a soft blue glow across her face as she monitored the background radiation of distant stars. 20 years of listening to the cosmos had taught her patience, but nothing could have prepared her for what happened next. The first signal arrived at 3:47 Earth Standard Time. It wasn't the usual cosmic noise or the remnant echoes of dying stars. This was different, structured, intentional, and absolutely terrifying. Director Webb. Sarah's voice remained steady despite her racing heart. You need to see this. Marcus Webb had been the director of Helios for over a decade, but Sarah had never seen him move so quickly. Within minutes, he was standing behind her chair, his weathered face illuminated by the pulsing patterns on her screen. It's not random, she explained, fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The signal's encrypted, but the carrier wave, it's using quantum entanglement principles we theorized, but never managed to achieve. The message began to decrypt itself, responding to their observation in ways that defied conventional physics. As the translation matrix processed the alien language, Sarah felt her blood run cold. This wasn't just first contact, it was a warning. The Luminary, as they called themselves, were dying. Their civilization had spanned thousands of years and hundreds of star systems, achieving technological marvels that humanity had only dreamed of. But now they were being hunted to extinction by something they called the Void Runners, beings that emerged from the dark spaces between stars, consuming entire worlds and leaving only silence in their wake. They're not just sending a distress signal, Sarah whispered as more data poured in. They're giving us everything. Their technology, their knowledge, their history, all of it. Webb's face hardened as he understood the implications. They're not expecting to survive. The signal contained terabytes of encrypted technical data, blueprints for quantum drives, shield technologies, and weapons that could reshape matter itself. But more importantly, it contained a truth that the Luminary had discovered too late. Humanity was unique in the galaxy. As Sarah and her team worked through the night, decoding more of the message, the picture became clearer. The Luminary had evolved in peaceful star systems, developing their technology over millennia without major conflicts. Humanity, by contrast, had evolved on a world that forced them to adapt constantly, fighting for survival against the elements and each other. This crucible of evolution had given humans something the Void Runners had never encountered: unpredictability. The next morning, as government officials and military leaders crowded into the observatory's main conference room, Sarah presented their findings. The holographic display showed the path of destruction the Void Runners had carved through the galaxy, systematically eliminating advanced civilizations with mechanical precision. The Luminary aren't just asking for help, she explained, her voice echoing in the silent room. They're giving us the tools to survive what's coming. Their analysis of human biology and psychology suggests we might be the only species capable of fighting back effectively. Admiral Helena Torres, the highest-ranking military officer present, leaned forward. What makes us so special? Sarah brought up another hologram, this one showing comparative neural patterns. The Void Runners operate on pure logic, predictable patterns they've perfected over countless conquests. But humans, she highlighted a chaotic but brilliant pattern of neural activity, where chaos incarnate, our ability to make intuitive leaps, to act irrationally in rational ways, to sacrifice short-term gains for long-term victories. It's unique among all the species the Luminary have encountered. The room erupted in discussion, but Sarah wasn't finished. She pulled up one final piece of data, a star chart showing the Void Runners' systematic advance across the galaxy. We have 2 years before they reach the first Luminary core worlds, maybe 5 before they discover Earth. The Luminary are giving us everything they have, because they believe we're the only hope for stopping what's coming. Admiral Torres stood, her decision made before the politicians could begin their debates. Dr. Chen, I want you and your team working with our best military scientists. If we're going to survive this, we need to understand every piece of technology the luminary sent us. As the meeting disbanded into urgent action, Sarah stayed behind, staring at the message that had changed everything. Hidden in the technical data and desperate warnings, she had found something else. A personal note from the luminary scientist who had composed the message. To those who receive this, we give you our legacy in hope, not desperation. We have watched your species grow, seen your potential and your passion. You fight with honor, love with intensity, and dream with unmatched imagination. Where we sought harmony with the universe, you seek to challenge it, to reshape it. This is not a weakness, as we once thought, but your greatest strength. The Void Runners cannot comprehend what they are about to face, and in that lies our hope for the future. Sarah closed the holographic display, her mind already racing with the work ahead. Humanity had just been handed the greatest responsibility in its history, not just to save themselves, but to preserve the legacy of a civilization that had seen in humanity what they had never found in themselves, the spirit of warriors who could face the darkness between the stars and refuse to back down. The next few months would transform Earth in ways no one could have predicted. As humanity raced to adapt luminary technology to their own unique way of thinking, they would discover that their greatest weapon wasn't the advanced technology they'd been given. It was the unpredictable, indomitable human spirit that had allowed them to survive and thrive on their harsh, beautiful world. The war for survival was coming, but for the first time in their history, humanity knew exactly what they were fighting for. They would not just fight for Earth, but for every civilization that had fallen to the Void Runners, for every species that deserved the chance to look up at the stars with wonder instead of fear. The signal that had started everything continued to pulse quietly in the background, a reminder of what was at stake. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew the truth. They weren't alone, but they might be the last hope for a galaxy that desperately needed what humans had in abundance: the ability to stand and fight when logic said to run, to find hope in the darkest moments, and to never, ever give up. The subterranean research facility beneath the Rockies hummed with activity as Dr. Chen studied the holographic display before her. 3 months had passed since the luminary signal, and humanity had learned more about itself in that time than in the previous century of scientific advancement. "Show me the combat simulation again," she requested, and the AI compiled. The hologram flickered to life, showing a theoretical engagement between Void Runner forces and human defenders. The alien ships moved with perfect precision, each maneuver calculated to maximize tactical advantage. But the human ships, they danced. Captain Miguel Rodriguez stood beside her, his special forces training evident in his stance, even as he marveled at the display. "It's beautiful, isn't it? The way our pilots just refuse to follow expected patterns." The simulation demonstrated what they'd discovered in thousands of tests. Human unpredictability wasn't just a quirk of evolution, it was a weapon. Where Void Runner tactical computers could predict the movements of their enemies to the microsecond, human pilots introduced chaos into every equation. "The luminary data confirms it," Sarah explained, pulling up comparative neural scans. Human brains process information in quantum states, allowing for true randomness in decision-making. We're the only known species whose neural activity can't be predicted by even the most advanced AI. The facility, dubbed Project Prometheus, had become the heart of Earth's preparation efforts. Teams of scientists and military strategists worked around the clock, combining luminary technology with human intuition in ways its original creators had never imagined. Admiral Torres entered the command center, followed by representatives from every major military power on Earth. For the first time in human history, the planet was truly united under a single cause. "Give me good news, Doctor," she said, her voice carrying across the room. Sarah gestured, and the holographic display expanded to show their latest breakthrough. We've successfully integrated luminary quantum shields with human brainwave patterns. The shields don't just block attacks. They adapt and evolve based on the emotional state of their operators. The demonstration showed a human-piloted ship under attack. As the pilot's adrenaline spiked, the shields shifted and pulsed, becoming stronger in ways that no algorithm could predict. We're turning our emotions into a tactical advantage, Sarah continued. Fear sharpens our reflexes, anger strengthens our defenses, and determination. Determination makes us virtually unstoppable. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. James Wilson, a cognitive archaeologist, had made a fascinating discovery while studying ancient human combat techniques. "Look at this," he said, pulling up historical combat data. Throughout human history, our most effective warriors weren't just the strongest or the most skilled. They were the ones who could enter what athletes call the zone, or what ancient warriors called battle trance. The implications were staggering. When integrated with luminary technology, this heightened state of human consciousness created something entirely new. The quantum drives responded to human intuition, allowing for maneuvers that defied conventional physics. Weapon systems synchronized with human reflexes, firing not where targets were, but where human instincts said they would be. "We're not just adapting their technology," Sarah explained to the assembled leaders. "We're transforming it into something the Void Runners can't possibly prepare for. Every human pilot, every soldier, every ship captain will be a unique variable in an equation they can't solve." The military leaders exchanged glances. Humanity had always excelled at warfare, but this was something else entirely. They weren't just preparing for a fight. They were revolutionizing the very nature of combat. Training facilities were established across the globe, where volunteers learned to merge their natural human instincts with advanced alien technology. The results were beyond anything they could have hoped for. Pilots who had never flown before were outmaneuvering AI opponents in simulated combat. Infantry soldiers wearing prototype quantum armor were performing feats that seemed to defy physics itself. But perhaps most importantly, humanity began to understand its own unique place in the galaxy. The very traits that some had considered primitive, their aggression, their emotionality, their willingness to defy logic in pursuit of victory, were precisely what made them humanity's best hope for survival. Dr. Chen spent countless nights studying the luminary data, finding new ways to exploit human potential. The aliens had been master engineers, creating technology that could reshape reality itself. But they had never understood what humans knew instinctively, that the greatest weapon in any arsenal was the indomitable will to survive, to protect, to triumph against impossible odds. As Earth's first quantum-enhanced defense fleet took shape in orbital shipyards, Sarah couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and trepidation. The ships were beautiful, their hulls incorporating both luminary efficiency and human artistry. Each vessel was unique, designed to amplify the particular strengths of its crew rather than conform to standardized specifications. "We're almost ready," Admiral Torres said one evening as they watched the sunset from the facility's observation deck. "The question is, are they ready for us?" Sarah thought about the Void Runners, those logical, predictable beings who had never faced an enemy they couldn't calculate. "They've never encountered anything like us," she replied. "They don't understand that humans don't just fight with weapons and tactics. We fight with our hearts, our souls, and our unwavering spirit." The Admiral smiled, a fierce expression that would have made any ancestor proud. "Then perhaps it's time we taught them why humanity has survived everything our own world has thrown at us. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting to prove that the luminaries' faith in us was well placed." As night fell over the facility, the stars seemed to shine brighter than ever before. Somewhere out there, the Void Runners were continuing their relentless advance, unaware that they were about to encounter something their perfect calculations could never have predicted, a species that had turned its own chaos into its greatest strength. The bridge of the EFS Prometheus fell silent as Admiral Torres studied the tactical display. Humanity's first battle fleet hung in the darkness of deep space, hidden within a quantum fold that rendered them invisible to conventional sensors. Ahead lay their target, a Void Runner assault fleet moving to strike the luminary colony of New Haven. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Captain Rodriguez announced from his tactical station. "Battle groups are in position." The plan they'd developed was unlike anything in military history. Traditional space combat doctrine called for organized formations and coordinated strikes. Instead, humanity had embraced chaos as their ally. Each ship captain had been given a single objective, but complete freedom in how to achieve it. "Send the signal," Torres ordered. "Operation Nightfall begins now." Across 50 ships, human crews touched their quantum-enhanced controls. The neural interfaces they'd developed from luminary tech sparked to life, turning human intuition into tactical reality. The fleet didn't just move, it exploded into action, each ship following paths that defied conventional logic. The Void Runners never saw them coming. Their first warning came as human vessels phased into existence at seemingly impossible angles, weapons already firing. The quantum shields that Dr. Chen had modified pulsed with the combined emotional energy of their crews, turning fear into protection and determination into unstoppable force. Multiple direct hits, Rodriguez reported, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "Their formation is breaking apart. They're trying to establish a defensive pattern, but they can't predict where we'll strike next." Torres watched as human ingenuity rewrote the rules of space combat. A destroyer captain, driven by pure instinct, executed a maneuver that should have torn his ship apart. Instead, the quantum drives responded to his determination, allowing the vessel to exist in multiple states simultaneously before reforming behind an enemy cruiser. In the tactical center aboard the Prometheus, Dr. Chen monitored the neural feedback from the fleet's crews. "It's working better than we hoped," she reported. "The quantum field is amplifying their natural abilities. Every victory, every successful maneuver strengthens their confidence, which in turn makes the technology even more effective." The Void Runners attempted to adapt, their superior numbers forming into perfect geometric patterns designed to maximize coverage and firepower. But humanity had spent its entire existence learning to overcome superior forces through unconventional thinking. Captain Lai Wei of the EFS Gung Ming demonstrated this perfectly. Instead of engaging the enemy squadron facing her directly, she ordered her crew to channel their fear, not suppress it. The quantum shields responded by creating a cascading wave of probability fields. Her ship appeared to fragment into dozens of ghost images, each one as solid as the original, until the moment of impact. "They can't distinguish our real ships from our quantum echoes," Sarah explained, watching the data stream in. "Every time they adapt to one of our strategies, we create 3 more they've never seen before." The battle reached its crescendo as humanity's final gambit was revealed. The quantum drives didn't just power their ships, they allowed them to manipulate the very fabric of spacetime. When Torres gave the signal, the entire human fleet executed what they dubbed the Ghost Dance Maneuver. 50 ships, moving in patterns guided by human intuition rather than computer logic, created a quantum resonance field that turned a sphere of space into a tactical playground where the laws of physics became mere suggestions. Void Runner targeting systems, dependent on predictable trajectories and known physical laws, became worse than useless. "Their fleet is in full retreat," Rodriguez announced, his voice carrying across the bridge. "Confirmed kills on 60% of their combat vessels. The remainder are attempting to reach their quantum jump points, but their formations are completely broken." Torres allowed herself a small smile. "Send the message we prepared. Let's see how they handle a little psychological warfare." The transmission went out on all frequencies, translated into the mathematical language the Void Runners used for communication. "You have encountered humanity. Your calculations cannot predict us. Your strategies cannot contain us. We are chaos incarnate, and we are coming for you." As the last enemy ships fled the battlefield, Sarah studied the after-action data with growing excitement. The human fleet had suffered minimal casualties, and more importantly, they'd proven that their theoretical advantages could translate into real tactical superiority. "They'll be back," Torres said, joining her at the tactical display. "And they'll try to adapt to what they saw today." "Let them try," Sarah replied, watching as the quantum field calculations danced across her screen. "That's the beauty of human unpredictability. By the time they figure out how to counter what we did today, we'll have invented a dozen new ways to fight them." The victory at New Haven marked a turning point in the war. Word spread quickly through the surviving luminary colonies. Humanity had not only engaged the Void Runners, but had driven them back. Hope, an emotion many had thought lost forever, began to resurface. Back on the bridge, Torres addressed her fleet. "Today we proved what humanity has always known in its heart, that determination, creativity, and the willingness to defy convention are weapons more powerful than any technology. We faced an enemy that had never known defeat, and we showed them something they had never encountered before, the indomitable human spirit." As the fleet regrouped and began preparations to defend other threatened systems, Sarah couldn't help but reflect on how far they'd come. The luminary had given humanity their technology out of desperation, but humans had transformed it into something entirely new. They hadn't just adapted the tools they were given. They'd proven that the greatest weapon in the universe was the human capacity to imagine the impossible and make it reality. The Void Runners would return, stronger and more prepared, but they would find that humanity was just getting started. Each battle would bring new innovations, new strategies born from the chaotic brilliance of human minds, unfettered by the constraints of conventional thinking. The war for survival had become something more, a testament to humanity's unique place in the cosmos as creatures who thrived on defying the impossible. The captured Void Runner data core pulsed with an eerie blue light as Dr. Chen and her team worked to decrypt its contents. 3 months had passed since the Battle of New Haven, and the aftermath had revealed something unprecedented. The Void Runners were learning to feel fear. Inside the secure analysis chamber of Project Prometheus, Sarah studied the alien code structures with growing fascination. The mechanical precision that had once characterized Void Runner communications was showing subtle but significant changes. Their perfect mathematical sequences now contained variations, tiny irregularities that spoke of something new, uncertainty. "They're attempting to mimic our unpredictability," she explained to Admiral Torres and the gathered military leadership. "But they're approaching it like a mathematical problem to be solved, not understanding that our strength comes from something they can't quantify." The holographic display showed tactical data from a dozen subsequent encounters. Each time human forces engaged the Void Runners, the enemy's responses became more erratic, more desperate in their attempts to counter human innovation. But their efforts to simulate chaos through algorithms only made them more predictable to human intuition. Commander Yuki Tanaka, whose unconventional tactics had recently saved 3 luminary worlds, leaned forward to study the display. "They're trying to write programs to generate random behavior, but they don't understand that true randomness can't be programmed. It has to be felt." The revelation had far-reaching implications. Humanity wasn't just winning battles, they were forcing an entire species to confront the limitations of their purely logical existence. The Void Runners, who had spent millennia perfecting their methodical approach to conquest, were being undone by their inability to truly comprehend human nature. Reports from the frontier brought more surprising news. Some Void Runner ships had begun to retreat from battles before sustaining critical damage, a concept of self-preservation that had never been observed in their behavior before. They were developing something akin to survival instinct, learned from their encounters with humanity's fierce determination to live. At a luminary sanctuary world called Haven's Light, this change in Void Runner behavior led to an unprecedented event. A small group of their ships, separated from their main fleet after a failed attack, initiated communication instead of fighting to the death as they always had before. The message they sent was brief, its mechanical precision marred by what could only be described as confusion. Your pattern is no pattern. Your chaos spreads like corruption in our calculations. How do you maintain coherence without absolute order? Sarah spent weeks analyzing this transmission with the help of both human and luminary specialists. They're experiencing a fundamental crisis, she explained during an emergency council meeting. Their entire society is built on the premise that the universe can be reduced to predictable patterns. We're showing them a truth that they're not equipped to handle. That true strength often comes from embracing uncertainty. The implications extended beyond military strategy. The luminary, watching from their remaining sanctuaries, began to see humanity in a new light. Where they had once viewed human unpredictability as a primitive trait, they now recognized it as perhaps the most sophisticated adaptation in the galaxy. Luminary scientists started studying human culture and history with newfound reverence. Admiral Torres recognized the opportunity this presented. If we can make the Void Runners question their fundamental nature, we can do more than just defeat them. We can change them. The next phase of human strategy incorporated this insight. Instead of simply overwhelming Void Runner forces with unpredictable tactics, human commanders began leaving deliberate patterns for the enemy to analyze, only to shatter those patterns in ways that forced them to confront the limitations of their logical worldview. Captain Rodriguez, now commanding his own ship, the ESS Chaos Theory, demonstrated this approach in the Battle of the Meridian Gap. His fleet appeared to establish a predictable attack pattern, encouraging the Void Runners to commit their forces to a counter-strategy. Then, at the crucial moment, human ships broke formation in ways that didn't just surprise the enemy. They challenged their understanding of reality itself. Look at their response times, Sarah noted, reviewing the battle data. They're experiencing decision paralysis. Every time they think they've understood our patterns, we show them something that shouldn't be possible according to their models. It's not just affecting their tactical responses, it's reshaping their cognitive architecture. The luminary observers provided crucial insight into the significance of these changes. Through their long-range quantum sensors, they detected increasing variations in Void Runner communication patterns. The perfect synchronization that had made their fleets so formidable was beginning to break down as individual ships developed varying responses to human unpredictability. They're beginning to individuate, a luminary scholar named Ethereal Wind explained. Your species hasn't just taught them to fear, you've taught them that uniform response patterns are a weakness, not a strength. Some of them are starting to develop what we might call independent thinking. This development brought both opportunity and new challenges. As some Void Runner ships began displaying more independent behavior, their tactics became less predictable, but also less coordinated. Their perfect formations began showing flaws that human forces could exploit, while their attempts to adapt to human warfare created confusion in their command structure. In the command center of Project Prometheus, Sarah and her team worked to understand these changes and their implications for the ongoing conflict. The quantum computers processed battle data while human intuition sought patterns in the chaos, not to predict it, but to understand how humanity's influence was reshaping their ancient enemy. We're not just fighting a war, Sarah realized, watching the tactical displays show yet another successful human engagement. We're forcing an evolution. Every encounter with human unpredictability pushes them further from their original nature. Admiral Torres considered this as she reviewed plans for the next major offensive. The question is, what do they evolve into? And can we guide that evolution towards something that might one day coexist with other species in this galaxy? The answer to that question would determine not just the outcome of the war, but the future of galactic civilization itself. Humanity had emerged onto the cosmic stage, not just as warriors, but as agents of change, their chaos spreading through the ordered patterns of the universe like ripples in a pond, transforming everything they touched. As the war entered its next phase, one thing became clear: the Void Runners would never be the same. They had encountered something their perfect calculations couldn't account for: the beautiful, terrifying unpredictability of the human spirit. And in trying to understand it, They had begun a transformation that would reshape the galaxy forever. The Great Hall of the Luminary High Council had stood empty for decades, its crystalline architecture bearing silent witness to their near extinction. Now, 5 years after humanity's first intervention in the Galactic War, it hummed with life once again. But the gathering within was unlike anything its ancient walls had ever seen. Dr. Sarah Chen stood beside Admiral Torres, watching as representatives from 30 different species filed into the chamber. Among them were faces both familiar and alien, luminary elders with their ethereal grace, human diplomats in their formal attire, and most remarkably, a small delegation of former Void Runners who had chosen to break away from their collective. Hard to believe this all started with a desperate distress signal, Torres murmured, her dress uniform adorned with medals from a dozen campaigns. Sarah nodded, remembering that night at the observatory that seemed a lifetime ago. They gave us their technology, hoping we could save them. Instead, we changed the entire galaxy. The last 5 years had transformed the cosmic battlefield in ways no one could have predicted. After the Battle of Meridian Gap, the Void Runner Collective had begun to fragment. Their attempts to understand and counter human unpredictability had introduced an element they couldn't control: individual thought. The first major defection had occurred during the Battle of Shadow's Edge. An entire Void Runner battle group, led by a commander who had developed what could only be described as curiosity, had suddenly broken formation and requested communication with human forces. They had questions, they said, about the nature of chaos and free will. That incident had sparked a cascade effect throughout the Void Runner fleet. As more of their kind began to develop individual consciousness, their perfect unity crumbled. Some fought more ferociously than ever, desperately trying to maintain their logical purity. Others began to experiment with human-inspired tactics, their actions becoming increasingly unpredictable. The breakthrough came when humanity realized they weren't just fighting a war. They were midwifing the birth of consciousness in a species that had never known individual thought. The Luminary, with their deep understanding of consciousness and quantum mechanics, had been essential in helping these awakening Void Runners navigate their emergence into selfhood. Now, as the assembly came to order, Sarah watched the former Void Runner delegates with fascination. They had chosen to call themselves the Awakened, and their appearance had changed as dramatically as their minds. Where once they had been identical units in a perfect collective, each now displayed unique modifications to their form, expressing their newly discovered individuality. High Elder Ethereal Wind of the Luminary rose to address the gathering, their crystalline form catching the light. We stand at a moment unprecedented in galactic history. Today, we formalize not just a military alliance, but a new understanding of consciousness itself. The proposed Galactic Coalition was unlike anything that had come before. It wasn't just a defensive pact or a trade agreement. It was a framework for sharing the unique strengths of each species. Humanity's gift for chaos and innovation would combine with luminary technology and wisdom, while the Awakened would contribute their perfect memory and processing power, now freed from the constraints of pure logic. The remaining Void Runner forces continue to fight. Admiral Torres reported to the assembly. But with each engagement, more of them begin to question, to think, to change. Our victory won't come from destroying them, but from showing them a better way to exist. Sarah presented the latest data from Project Prometheus, now expanded into a multi-species research initiative. The quantum field interactions we've observed suggest something remarkable, she explained. Consciousness itself appears to be a force capable of influencing reality at the most fundamental level. Human unpredictability, luminary harmony, and even the rigid logic of the old Void Runner collective. They're all different expressions of how conscious beings can shape the quantum fabric of space-time. The implications were staggering. As more Void Runners awakened to individual consciousness, their ability to manipulate reality began to change. Some learned to channel chaos like humans, while others developed entirely new ways of interacting with the quantum field. The galaxy was witnessing the birth of something entirely new, a synthesis of different forms of consciousness. An awakened delegate named Genesis Step addressed the assembly, their modified form incorporating both the crystalline aesthetics of the luminary and the practical functionality favored by humans. We who have emerged from the collective understand now what we could not before. The universe is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be experienced. Humanity showed us that chaos is not our enemy. It is the source of growth, of change, of life itself. The Coalition Treaty was more than a political document. It was a recognition that the galaxy's greatest strength lay in diversity, of thought, of approach, of consciousness itself. Each species would contribute its unique perspective while learning from the others. Human military academies would teach alongside luminary consciousness institutes and awakened technology centers. As the delegates signed the treaty, Sarah felt a profound sense of completion. The luminary signal that had reached Earth 5 years ago hadn't just been a cry for help. It had been the catalyst for a transformation that would reshape galactic civilization. What do you think happens next? Torres asked as they watched the historic moment unfold. Sarah smiled, watching as human chaos, luminary wisdom, and awakened precision combined to create something entirely new. What always happens when you introduce chaos into a system? Evolution, growth, the birth of new possibilities. The remaining Void Runner collective continued to fight, but their defeat was no longer the primary goal. Each battle now served as an opportunity to awaken more of their kind to consciousness, to show them that there were ways of existing beyond perfect logic and absolute order. As the ceremony concluded, Sarah's quantum pad chimed with a notification. The observatory back on Earth had detected something new. Signals from distant galaxies that showed patterns similar to the original luminary distress call. Somewhere out there, other civilizations were facing their own versions of the Void Runners, trapped in the prison of perfect logic. Ready to share what we've learned? Torres asked, noting Sarah's expression. The galaxy taught us we weren't alone. Sarah replied. Maybe it's time we taught other galaxies the same lesson. As the assembled delegates mingled, their different forms of consciousness creating complex patterns in the quantum field, Sarah realized that this wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning. Humanity had proven that chaos and order weren't opposites, but complementary forces that, when properly balanced, could give birth to entirely new forms of existence. The stars seemed brighter that night, as if reflecting the new possibilities that had been born in that ancient hall. The galaxy was entering an age of transformation, where the boundaries between different forms of consciousness would blur and blend, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. And at the heart of it all was humanity's greatest gift to the cosmos, the beautiful, unpredictable power of chaos to create new forms of order.